At the beginning of any sports season, one of the most exciting things is the unknown. Who will emerge as a breakout star? Which new player will make their debut? Which teams will surprise us by rising from the bottom or falling from the top? We can learn from the previous season that anything can happen. For instance, the Rangers came into the 2023 season with many people thinking that if they had a .500 season, it would be successful, and they ended up winning the World Series. On the other hand, the Mets were predicted to be World Series contenders, but performed poorly and ended up selling their players to tank. Let's look at which teams might change our perception of them by the end of the season and how they could do it in 2024. Let's start with the Yanks. Although the Yankees had a winning record last season at 82-80, it was the worst season the franchise has endured since 1995. Yankees fans watched their team's season fall apart in 1 week. On May 28th, Anthony Rizzo was trying to tag out Padres superstar Fernando Tatis Jr., and while trying to tag him, Tatis's knee hit Rizzo straight in the head and gave Rizzo some concussion-like syndromes. Before that incident, Rizzo was one of the best first basemen in baseball with an .880 OPS. The Yankees didn't give him the rest needed for a concussion, and the rest of the season, he posted a .496 OPS, making him by far the worst starting first baseman in the league. Less than a week later, Aaron Judge literally ran through a wall in LA, suffering a toe injury that kept him out for close to a month. The Yankees were 35-25 going into that game, and afterward they went 47-55 as the rest of their lineup was exposed after the Judge injury. The Yankees front office was not happy, and it was shown when they went out and made plenty of moves to retool their roster. They brought in veterans Alex Verdugo, John Birdie, Victor Gonzalez, Marcus Stroman, and two-time Gold Glove winner Trent Grisham to be their fourth outfielder. They also traded for three-time All-Star, four-time Silver Slugger, and perennial MVP candidate Juan Soto, giving them two of the top 5 hitters in MLB. Before the season started, it was announced that the 2023 Cy Young winner and team ace Garrett Cole would be out for at least a month with an elbow injury. Luckily for the Yankees, Marcus Stroman has looked like a great signing, along with a healthy Carlos Rodon, and a step forward from Clark Schmidt and Luis Gil has given them a top 10 rotation without their best pitcher. At the time of writing this, they currently have 7 of their 9 starting position players with an OPS plus over 100. Soto and Judge have both been amazing. A huge step forward from Anthony Volpe and Oswaldo Cabrera with leader Giancarlo Stanton has made them look like an offensive juggernaut. All of this has led them to having a 13-6 record so far, sitting atop the AL East. I would expect them to continue competing for the division for the whole season and be a threat in the playoffs, especially with Cole coming back during the season. Now, as far as Pittsburgh goes, the Pirates have been stuck in a cycle of poor play and mediocrity since 2015, whether it's poor drafting, awful trades, or arrests made to players on the team. The front office has always seemed to have an issue putting a quality product on the field for the better part of 20 years. Last season, they got off to an amazing 20-8 start. Unfortunately, their aging rotation and underwhelming offense couldn't sustain this as they ended their season 76-86, missing the playoffs yet again. Even with their poor season last year, they did establish a good core with Ke'Bryan Hayes having an amazing second half, Mitch Keller breaking out, David Bednar showing that he wasn't a one-season wonder, Jack Sawinski showcasing power, Brian Reynolds being his usual self, and even though he got injured early last season, O'Neal Cruz has all the potential in the world to become an amazing player. The Pirates saw an opportunity with this core as they gave Keller an extension and added on to it with Gold Glove outfielder Michael A. Taylor, Edward Olivares, and All-Stars Martin Perez and Aroldis Chapman. With these additions, the Pirates sneakily have an above-average rotation, including their bullpen with Mitch Keller and Martin Perez heading the rotation, with top prospect Paul Skeens waiting in the wings with Aroldis Chapman, Colin Holderman, and David Bednar in the back end of their bullpen. They're currently tied for first place in the NL Central with an 11-5 record. The difference between their good start this year and last year is that no one on their team is currently performing way over what they usually do, except Martin Perez. Although he is overperforming, he has shown in his 2022 All-Star season that he has all the potential to be a high-quality pitcher. Don't be surprised if this team wins 83-87 games this year and flirts with the playoff spot. Now to the AL Central in Kansas City. 2023 was tied for the worst season in Royals franchise history with a 56-106 record. A season-ending injury to Vinny Pasquantino, underperformance from almost their entire starting lineup, and one of the worst pitching staffs in baseball was showing almost no hope for a better future. Luckily for KC, 3 players showed huge potential in the second half of 2023. Nelson Velasquez only played 40 games but hit 14 homers with an .878 OPS. If he can even get close to that production, they've found their everyday DH. Cole Reagans came over from the Texas Rangers for Aroldis Chapman at the trade deadline. Usually the team selling won't reap the rewards of the trade for a couple of seasons, but the Royals got immediate production from Reagans last year. He started 12 games for them and posted a 2.64 ERA and 71.2 innings pitched with 11.2 strikeouts on average over 9 innings. His uptick in velocity whenever he got to the Royals, paired with an elite changeup, quickly made him one of the best starting pitchers in MLB. Last but certainly not least is Bobby Witt Jr. His great second half last year was enough for the Royals to give him an 11-year, $288.8 million contract. In the second half of the season, he hit over 300 with 16 homers and an OPS of 906. They also added onto this core with reliable veterans Hunter Renfroe, Michael Wacha, Seth Lugo, Chris Stratton, and Will Smith. Kansas City is currently in second place in their division with a 10-6 record, with the Royals being in a weak AL Central. Don't be surprised if they can be one of the few teams that can go from worst to first. Now let's head south to Florida, and I do mean south. Miami made the playoffs last year for the first time in a full season since they won the World Series in 2003. Even though they made the postseason, they weren't a playoff caliber team. They finished with an 84-78 record thanks to their 33-14 record in one-game runs. Typically, when a team has a drastic record either way, it is expected that they will make their way back to around 500. They also had a minus 66 run differential, which means they should have been a bit below 500 based on how many runs they scored versus how many they gave up. Their offense was carried for much of the season by Luis Arias and Jorge Soler, but in much different ways. Arias won the NL batting title with a .354 average, and Jorge Soler slugged his way to 36 homers and then left Miami in the offseason. They also traded away veteran utility infielder John Birdie, who has been a valuable piece the past couple of years. Despite losing Soler and Birdie, their offense has potential with Bell, Berger, Chisholm Jr., and Arias. That said, their entire offense has been putrid to start this season. They signed Tim Anderson to be their everyday shortstop, who was statistically the worst player last year and has been bad again this year with a .596 OPS. Jazz Chisholm Jr. currently has the highest OPS plus on the team with 90. That means he has been 10% worse than the league average hitter, and he's been their best statistically. With their offense being this bad, maybe their pitching has been good? Nope. Former first-round picks Max Meyer and Ryan Weathers both have been good with sub-3 ERAs. Jesus Luzardo has struggled to an ERA north of 7. A.J. Puck got converted to a starter and has been bad. And Tanner Scott doesn't look like the 2023 version of himself so far. On top of all that, unanimous 2022 NL Cy Young winner Sandy Alcantara and former top prospect and young phenom Yuri Perez are both out for the entire season. A team rarely goes into a season after making the playoffs with such low expectations. I would count on the Marlins finishing last in the NL East, as they are already 3-13, and I wouldn't be surprised if they lose 90 to 100 games. And this one might be the most surprising of them all. The Astros have been a juggernaut for almost a decade now. They have made it to the ALCS 7 years in a row and won 2 World Series. But 2023 may have been the beginning of their downfall. Their 90 wins last year is their fewest since 2016, which is the last time they missed the playoffs. They ended up having the same record as the Rangers, but had the tiebreaker over them, so they still won the division, but lost to them in the ALCS. I think one of the reasons they will start to get worse is other teams in the division are much better now than they have been any other time the Astros have been on the run. The Seattle Mariners and Texas Rangers each won 88-plus games last season, and the Mariners won 90 games the season before. This means Houston will have tougher division games that will result in more losses. The Astros have one of the best list of pitchers on IL ever. Justin Verlander, Framber Valdez, Lance McCullers Jr., Jose Urquidy, and Luis Garcia are all currently hurt. Those names alone are good enough for a playoff spot. Although they should be able to figure it out, the trio of Abreu, Bielak, and Presley all have ERAs close to over 5. They still have a potent lineup with Diaz, Altuve, Bregman, Alvarez, and Tucker, but their pitching could be something to worry about until some of those guys come off the IL. They're off to a rough start with a 6-11 record and are currently sitting in last place in the AL West, even being with the A's. What teams have surprised you with their performance so far this year, whether it be for the better or worse? Let me know in the comments and subscribe to Baseball Buzz.